Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Guile here, and welcome back to another Supreme Commander epic. It is 4v4 pro level action this afternoon, going down on the one, the only, the infamous Setons clutch, everybody's favourite, and if it's not yours, well, get some better opinions. We'll call this Team 1 up here at the top, and this Team 2 down here at the bottom. Going first for Team 1, rearguard air position in fecal brown. Interesting decision, it's Mr. Science going UEF, opening first land. Handling cliffs for Team 1 down here to the south in elephantine grey, we have Nori. He's going Cyber, bless him, opening first air. Going to get that transport out nice and early, secure that side island. Always a sensible decision. Fighting the good fight on the causeway for Team 1, we have Insidious Noob going UEF, terribly sensible, opening first land in regal purple. And last but not least, over at the beach, we have Cheeseberry, another Cybrin. He's going first land, second air. So it's 2 Cybrins and 2 UEFs there for Team 1. Checking out Team 2 now, starting with air position, we have Cortana, our first Aeon of the day, terribly sensible for an air player, opening first land in electric blue. Up here on the cliff edge in burgundy red, we have, dear lord, Kuwak Klimakleba. Kuwak Klimakleba. I'm going to call him Clem because that's easier, and also because it reminds me of Clem Fandango. And if you don't know who that is, Google, hello Stephen, this is Clem Fandango, can you hear me? Yeah, I got the quote right, there we go. Thank me later. All YouTube recommendations thrown in free of charge here. Anyway, he's going Aeon as well, opening first land, going second air in burgundy red, if I haven't said that already, and I think I have. Fighting the good fight on the causeway for Team 2 is Foley. He's going Aeon in Ferrari red. So there's a bit of a theme going here. Going first air. What's this about? Well, I suppose he's got an early T1 bomber, so he went straight for T1 bomber. And where is that headed? Going up towards Insidious Noob's base. And he is, going Ferrari red. And last but not least, we've got Oronde down here going Cybrin in mellow yellow, opening first land, second air. So what does he manage to do, if anything? Has he got a bomb away yet? He's got 1 kill to his name. That one's gone a little wide. Nice split, though, from Insidious Noob. And where is he headed next? Looks like he's going up over here to harass Cheese. So players to look out for in this game while we watch this bomber meander his way about and kill engineers. Poor helpless creatures that they are. We've got Nori on Team 1. He's 2200. Foley, who is bomber we're watching just at the moment, he's 2300. Top-rated player in this game. Bottom-rated player is Oronde down here at the beach for Team 2. He is the only Joe present at 1200. And bottom-rated player for Team 1 is Mr. Science. Another kill there for Foley. Mr. Science handling air for Team 1 up at the top. So we have a major discrepancy in the bottom pond. It is Nori at 2200 versus Oronde at 1200. I would expect that pond to go Team 1's way. Also a big old discrepancy in the air because Mr. Science at 1500 rated is outclassed potentially on paper by Cortana, who's a whopping 2000 rated. So air could potentially swing in Team 2's favour. So there we have it. What have we got here? So first transport initially used by Cliff players, usually to secure the side island. Clem says, none of that. I'm going to go for as much irritating behaviour as possible, like Clem Fandango, my namesake. He is going to send a little bit of a drop en route towards Cheeseberry's northern cliffs over here. Looks like he's making a play for the 3 mass points. I think he's got 3 engineers on board. Yes, he has. That has been spotted, though. He passed 1 air scout down here, and now he's passed a second. Nori does dispatch an interceptor who was in the area to try and intercept, but he's not going to be able to prevent that transport offloading its cargo. Transport won't make it back home to any relative safety, but it has got the engineers on the ground. But look at that, Cheese very quick to react, gets the reclaim off, has dealt with one of the engineers, and now Sky Slammers and Hunters dispatched to deal with it, and that is that's not gone well. Foley says lol, he was watching that encounter from his point on the causeway. We can quit, he says to allies. Nice tea. So he's not impressed with Clem's performance on that drop, unfortunately. Never mind. We will see how he fares in the center as things start to heat up 4 ACUs converging on the midpoint. We usually get this kind of outcome. The 2 Causeway players make their way to the center, and as is consistent with modern day meta, they usually get assistance from the 2 beach players who pull their comms to try and tussle over the reclaim in the center. 1 Cybrid apiece, and then 1 Aeon versus 1 UEF. Cybrins focusing in on one another. Rond on 8,100, Cheeseberry on 8,004, Foley 9,200, Insidious Noob 9,400. So Nori didn't mess about, got his first transport out and secured that side island, the more conventional start. Clem just going after his now after the less conventional start. And I apologise, I don't remember where the setting is or what the hotkey is to turn off all of this green garbage. A naming mod. It's terribly amusing to some, just not to casters. I'm going to have a lot of this gunk all over the place. Answers in the comment section below if you know what that is for future reference. I did know it once upon a time, but I've forgotten. And while you're down there, love, smash the old like button. Does wonders for my ego, which is especially important at this time of year when my nose is leaking snot. Looks like Oron's had enough of this party. He is backing up down to 3,100 HP. How much is he backing up? Well, he is just outright leaving. He says, Foley, you can deal with this all by your lonesome. Looks like he's putting his comm back over here. Admittedly, he does need to get started on naval production if he's going to contend with Nori. Got a lot of work to do there. What's going on here? Another saucy drop inbound, but that's going to get discovered, and there's a decent number of inties in the area. Oh, Clem. Can he get the engineers on the ground? Yes, he does. He'll lose the transport. At least he doesn't lose... Oh, well, really lost two. Clem having a little bit of a torrid time here. Foley with his toes in the water. Trying to contend with some of this UEF spam. It's extra hit points for the UEF versus the mobility of the floaty, naughty down here. These Auroras, which of course can come and go on the water and land as they please. Cheese on about 4,200. We never mentioned Cheese's rating. He's at 2,100, so shouldn't be too new to this. However, he's being pretty aggressive here. 3,300 hit points. Can you make a T2 transport, says Nori. Why? What are you doing? Working on T3. We've got a comm drop, everybody. Comm drop underway. T3 upgrade en route for Nori's comm. He's asked his air player to make a T2 transport. If you're wondering why that's important, I'd say he's getting to work on it right away, but he's not actually. He's working on a T1, but I'm sure he'll get to it in just a moment. No, I don't know my own symbols. That was a T2. Beg your pardon, ladies and gentlemen. So he's going to have that transferred over. If you're wondering why that's significant, you're new to the game or you just watch these casts, T1 is not large enough to carry the comm. So if you're going to pick your comm up and throw it at someone, you better get yourself a T2 transport for the job. Cheeseberry, 4,300 hit points. Foley, 6,000. Insidious Noob, 4,500. Actually, initially it looked like there was more inbound spam coming in for Insidious, but Foley doing pretty well in this encounter. Insidious on a woeful 0.23 kill-loss ratio. Foley just below a flat 1. And Orond on a whopping 9, but he hasn't done that awful lot yet, so that's why. Hasn't exposed his forces too much. But oh my goodness, what are you doing? What are you doing, Cheese? No! I can only... Whoops, he says... I mean, he must have been focusing elsewhere. I said he was low on HP. Oh, that's really bad for Team 1. Insidious takes over the beach, but can Foley rescue... Not Foley, sorry. Nori rescue something from this situation. We've got a drop inbound. He's going to fly right the way through these fighters which are guarding this approach, but there's only 2 of them. There's a lot more HP on a T2 transport than a T1. Where's drop-off location? He's not messing about. It's right in here. He's got T3, remember, so he can go straight for point defense, flak and what have you, and get those things up and running. And look at that perfect clean drop off. You can't ask for fairer than that. Straight for a T1 PD, lots of land factories, shield gen, engineers for Oran scramble to try and erect defenses, but they're taking fire from the point defense, and that PD is never going to get built. That is the perfect landing for Nori. Gets his comm on the ground. He is now set up, going to have 4 operational factories. And this position, I think, is ostensibly lost. We do have another factory down here and 2 more going up over here. But trying to contend with a tooled-up T3 comm is not easy. Oh, look at that! There were some Medusas inbound. They nearly succeed in taking out the shield gem before it goes online. But it blinks on just in the nick of time to block the final shots that would have destroyed it. And now Nori can continue to produce more point defense underneath, whilst those factories spit out more Medusas of their own. This is going to be a definite win, and this is going to be difficult now for Team 2 to dislodge. Do we have gunships or anything like that? We have 1 or 2 restorers lurking for Katana. They are heading in the opposite direction at the moment. Maybe looking like they want to come up and assist Clem with some of these frigate issues he's got at the moment. What's happening over here? So the Causeway players have backed up away from each other. Insidious Noob working on a T2 upgrade. That's nearly complete. It's going to restore a chunk of hit points. Thank you very much, he says. Foley has backed up slightly as well. He's going for a similar play, although slightly further behind his mirror here. Just starting his upgrade now at 22.3%. Arond stationary at the moment with his comm. I think he's got to think about getting this chappie involved. He's going to need it to protect his main base, because you better be sure that once Nori has established this beachhead, he is going to be coming for that main base. We've already got an extra factory down. Initial Cerberus turrets, their inbound fire was getting blocked by the relief of the hill there. The brow was in the way, so he's moved up to the edge of this hill and thrown down another Cerberus turret. Here comes a stealth upgrade, finished in great time. Has he got some stored up mass here? He's got some, although it is starting to dwindle. This is looking really bad for Orond at the moment. Not ideal. We're going to have a mass of factory spam now, spewing out tons and tons of T1 units. Orond pulling in just 57 mass per tick. Nori pulling in a whopping 115. I do not like his chances. I like this play, but unfortunately these vessels are all T1. He hasn't had the chance to get tooled up to T2 yet. He doesn't really have the eco to do it either, let alone sustain T2 naval production, which is notoriously expensive. If he could get some T2 vessels in there, this would become a difficult position to defend. Like that. Saucy little TAC missile launcher. First missile loaded. We're going to have to wait to see what he targets. We'll see if we catch it a little bit later. Lots of action going on elsewhere. What's happening in the top pond? That's Clem's forward naval production position. 3 naval yards in play, though under frigate assault and T1 bomber attack. Expect to lose 1 or 2 of these at least. But Foley with the blaze production, sending those out over the water. Maybe that'll be enough to hold on to all of these. The extra damage those blazes will put out. Yeah. Trident's forced to turn tail and sail away. Checking back in with our incursion in the south. Nori moves up. New PD, new shield gen. Important to pop these down every now and again as you advance, so you have a position to withdraw to. And there is the next one. A real point defense creep underway here. Span coming up to challenge core mass over here for Orond. Still only pulling in 40 or 58 mass per tick. Can't afford to lose those. Has he managed to tool himself up at all? Yes, he has. Went for the T2 engineering suite so he can at least start work on some Cerberus turrets, and that's what he's going to do. Composition moving down towards the main base. But it's a T2 com versus a T3. who's almost pulling in 3 times the eco. Not ideal. And that eco situation is only going to get worse for him as this point defense creep continues. There goes another T2 mass point. It's now 40 versus 140. Quickly, that T3 engineering suite builds those T2 PDs. You've got the mass stored up. Tactical missile defense over there, says Cheese. Defend your reactors. Why is that? Well, there's a serpentine or serpentine attack missile launcher just there. Cheese still making himself useful from beyond the grave. Arguably more so than in the opening stages when he was alive. I kid, because I don't play the game myself, so no one ever has to watch me play. I can act all superior, even though anybody who has seen me play knows that I am a full-on average Joe. Nori constructs himself a T2 radar. That's the picture from his field of view. Couple of restorers to worry about down there, but look at this. Look at all of the outbound spam he's got. Proper fire base under construction down here. More Cerberus turrets. Yeah, I think Orond might just be done here. Pulling in just 7 mass per tick, but his final T2 mass extractor is about to go down. He's going to be consigned to the pitiful 1 mass that his ACU generates. He's now effectively useless. He's a wandering commander. Fantastic work by Nori to rescue this game in favour of Team 1 after Cheese taking that early exit. This is a slight problem in of itself for Team 1. Yes, they've done remarkably well down here. They'll win the pond by extension, completely destroying Orond's base from this comm drop. And then he'll just tinker in with a modest investment in Navy, finish off this position, and he'll be able to harass Foley's causeway positions from this bottom pond. But while all that's going on, we have this forward momentum building in the top pond now from this combined pressure from Clem and from Foley. Insidious handling the causeway and the beach position. Might just find himself a little overwhelmed. Mr. Science taking some pot shots at some of Cortana's Restorer gunships there. The Restorers managed to bug out, taking a bit of damage. Cortana responds, plucking some of the hostile ASFs out of the sky with his own. Look at this. Nori reaches the core mass and is now comfortably setting up shop. Nano repair upgrade to complement the stealth. That's the next phase. I still don't understand the thinking behind that. It's just not that it might work from a balance side of things, but it's just from a role play side of things. I don't see how nano repair relates to stealth. That's the only thing. That's my one gripe. Someone write it into the story somewhere in some kind of mission. Speed, I'm looking at you, sir, if you're not too busy, which I know you are. Blazes on the run by, make themselves a real nuisance up here at this northern cliff position, but lacking on micro. They didn't need to be right so up close and personal to that T1 PD, and now they're still in range of other ones over here. Need to kill off some of these engineers, that's for sure. I think this position is yet again going to survive. Oh, it's a lovely little bombing run, massacring all the build capacity around that T2 naval HQ of Insidious. Another group of blazes inbound. Soon it's going to be just the T2 naval HQ remaining, I think. Maybe not even that, maybe just the T1. They do need to barrel through it so they can kill off this nanite torpedo array. There it goes. That would have been a solid little investment. So where are we on eco? Well, Team 1 are pulling in 766 mass per tick. Team 2 pulling in 612. Not surprising, considering Nori has commandeered Oron's base. And all of the mass that it holds, with the exception of this one mass extractor over here. Just no way for him to contend with Nori at this point. I wonder, Foley very much continuing to push forwards. I'm wondering if it's crossing his mind at all to try and help deal with this situation, because this seems existential to me. This is a major problem. And now this body of units, T1 and T2, heading in to harass Cortana, and they cannot afford to lose their air player who has that 500 rating advantage on Team 1's air player, as we said at the beginning. 20 minutes in, and it's looking pretty good right now for Team 2. Let's hear your appraisal in the comment section below. Who's going to win? Just trying to remain useful in some fashion, trying to thin out some of this inbound spam. We don't have a lot in terms of ground-based firepower. Cortana over here with a RAS upgrade on his comm and no ground units to speak of. He has got engineers working on a little defensive array to the south, protecting this mass point down here. He really needs one or two Oblivion turrets defending the main base. At the moment, these restorers are doing their level best to try and thin out this inbound T1 nuisance. Lovely little run by here in the north, though. Foley getting another couple of groups of blazes. I guess they came in through this tack. This little midpoint of mass extractors belonging to Mr. Science under threat. He has got a decent number of engineers, though, properly churning out the PDs. Wow, Cortana switching things up. He's got that is, he must have had, is he, well, if he did have mass stored up, he's used it all, but I can't believe he would have managed to get through that many upgrades in that time if he didn't. He's gone from just having advanced RAS to going double gun and converting advanced RAS to personal shield. He's got 8,000 shield hit points on top of the 11,000 base. And a decent amount of damage. Will it be enough to contend with all of this inbound spam, though? There is a lot coming his way. Nori properly in command of this position now, upgrading the shield gen, upgrading mexes. That's when you know someone's there for the long haul, if they're investing in mass production. I think the way is clear enough. Nice little strap bomber attack underway against Mr. Science from Cortana. Cortana, who has snuck up there somehow. These are not stealth fighters, remember. He's gone Aeon today, not Cybrant. But Mr. Science, who was utilizing his fighters to protect the skies above Nori, seemed to leave his own airspace somewhat vulnerable. You die. Well, that's his opinion. He's entitled to it. He may not be wrong. That's a lot of inbound rhinos. Cortana, shield hit points plummeting as all of that inbound Cybrant spam focuses in on that commander, isolated and alone. Shield is gone. HP on the chassis evaporating very, very quickly. And that is quite the coup for Team 1. chasing down Cortana's comm, but he's not going to survive. Cortana trying to draw that spam in towards this bank of point defense. Solid play by Nori. Ron's comm nearby also. He might go down here too. It's going to be a multi-kill. Little less impressive. It was just a wandering comm, as we've said at this point. And no getting out of that. I think he'll be happy to be off the field, to be honest. And Kaflooey. Wow. So Nori picks up 2 kills. It's now a 2v3. Those blazes have been dealt with. Although Team 1 looking a little underdeveloped up here. They are ever so slightly ahead. But the big advantages they enjoyed initially have been eaten away at. It's now neck and neck. In terms of total mass accrued, it's 767 versus 629. That is huge. But we have an inbound GC. An inbound GC that was originally constructed by Clem. You can tell because it's still got a name. But it's been handed over to Foley. And where is Nori? He is hung up in his structures over here. Getting to work on some Cerberus turrets. He'll be aware of this. He'll know it's coming. I'm just baffled as to why he's not making a run for it. Run, saying someone's pinged him telling him to run, and now he's decided to make a run for it. Can he get to the water in time? The range on the GC is always more than you think. He's going towards the water, not in the directest of tacks, but it's understandable. He wants to try and stay away from the GC, but he's going to have to make a play for the water, but he's not. He's turning away from it, but I don't think it's going to make a difference anyway. That GC is almost in range. It's down to 55,000 hit points. It locks onto Nori's comm. This will be huge if Foley can pick him off here. And he's only gone and done it. Wow. 44,000 hit points remaining on the GC when Nori went down. Look at that ACU movement. Very, very slow indeed. He thought he had more time than he did. You see a GC coming for you, man. You just got to make a run for it. Oh, if only he'd had that transport loitering. Could have picked up his comm. Didn't even have to make a run all the way back for home if he was worried about counter ASF play. He could have just picked it up and dropped it in the water. But as it stands, Nori is out. Insidious Noob is now left controlling that base. He is controlling the beach, the causeway, and the cliffs. The whole front line for Team 1. And now, of course, this very significant area of Team 2's territory. Will he be able to hold on to it now, though? We've seen what a GC has done. It's torn its way through. Yes, it did get killed off, but not before it got Nori. And there is a growing number of Restorer gunships entering service over here for Foley. Insidious sort of managing to hold the front line in his main base, or rather what was Cheese's main base, bordering that top pond. Not a huge amount of forward naval momentum, or indeed the hover tanks that were used to great effect before from Foley. That seems to have dissipated. It might be because all of the naval vessels lurking over here have damaged the causeway facilities where a lot of those blazes were being produced. Air battle brewing over here. That's going to go Foley's way. Mr. Science unable to contend with the combination of those Restorers and the air superiority fighters. Air dominance handed over to Team 2 after that encounter. Yeah, more problems potentially for the longevity of this beachhead base. Has got a handful of Salems down here doing their naughty walkie thing, or rather more precisely standy cigarette-y breaky thing. Second GC under construction. 2 more destroyers have entered service over here. Ooh, are they solaces? They are. Shiny T3 torp bombers brought in to deal with those cruisers, and deal with them they do. You cannot adequately describe just how awesomely competent those T3 torp bombers are. Look at that. So many torpedoes left over after the destruction of that cruiser. Handful of air superiority fighters just mysteriously allowed to live there by Foley and continue to harass those solaces. As the wave of air superiority fighters just passed by. What have we got here? So we've got another drop inbound. Couple of support commanders coming out from Clem. Someone somewhere who knows what this name is about is furious that I'm not using it properly, instead saying a completely different name. I cannot help it. My dyslexia and my laziness prevents me from adequately working to describe or pronounce that name in its proper fashion. It is not my fault. Morax. Happy Morax and happy Golol. Moving up on this position. I thought they were actually coming here just for reclaim initially. And I thought maybe it was a drop. And now it looks like they are going on the offensive. I'd love to deal with this T3 naval yard that's working on a summit. Going to get their reclaim on. Can they finish reclaiming that T3 naval HQ before that summit completes? Summit, which is drawing some omen fire. Lots of riptides being funneled into this bay area, though, from Insidious. Yeah, I think this is going to get dealt with. He's just going to move up and take some of the build power off by consuming these engineers. Oh, but it will complete, only to get obliterated. I actually think that was a Neptune rather than a Summit. Or was it a Summit? Yeah, it was a Neptune. And down goes the factory. Remaining engineers get to work on some torpedo launchers. This is a nice little 2 to 3 man support commander assault, which is underway. Speaking of assault, those Salems finally got the impetus to move somewhere. And it's to move on Foley's main base. Though one could argue that he has since moved to Cortana's. Certainly the more important of the two. Colossus operational, not yet sent in though. Might be waiting for a second. There is a second one under construction. How are things going on the eco side of things? Well, Team 1 are way ahead by some 400 mass per tick. 934 versus 1.3 something. And they're up by 240,000, 235,000, something like that. Pretty solid advantage in terms of eco. And yet still, Team 2 managing to make some gains here and there. Support commanders have taken down the second T3 naval yard. Do worse than to pop up onto the beach and just spam up some T2 point defense. Properly shut this area down. Riptides still causing a nuisance of themselves though against these naval vessels. Who is pulling in most of the eco for Team 1? Well, unsurprisingly, it's Insidious, pulling in a whopping 1k. Mr. Science pulling in 346. Doesn't sound like a lot compared to everybody else, but remember he is operating on just that rear section of territory, so reasonably respectable.
Strategic launch detected.
And our first nuke is out. It's out from Mr. Science in the main base. There it is. It's the launcher. Last of the Salems tramples his way through that main base up towards the forward position where another GC is in production, so Foley is really starting to spam these out now. And we've also got a major attack underway against this beachhead. Could this be the attack that finally deals with this Cybran infection? You going after core base assets of Clem. No SMD in play. That's going to land, and it's lovely placing. It's going to deal with the gateway. All of the core mass. Queue up the next nuke for the side island, says Cheese. Look at this counter-attack featuring 2 GCs and all of the blazes that a normal person with 2 arms could reliably shake a stick at. There is a megalith that's recently finished production, standing guard of the main beachhead facilities. It's technically not be a cliff head. Sounds like somebody who's a huge mega fan of Cliff Richard. Can't imagine there's many of those about. My mum, perhaps. Colossus advancing. And this is how you play it. Wise tactical maneuver. Stay out of range of all of this spam, which is stationary. Insidious, his attention is focused elsewhere. Just hoover up this threat at range where they can't respond, and then move on the megalith. Perfect play. Some Bernies moving into the frame down here. Marching away like they've got a date in Palestine. Front GC's going to go down. Ooh, heard a big explosion. I thought for a moment I missed the comm go up, but it was a support commander going pop in the background. First GC down. Megalith not going to be able to chew through the second or anywhere near it. Still some 72,000 hit points, and all of the blazes will finish up that first group of Bernies. Second group won't fare that much better. There is a large amount of Cerberus turrets queued up at this forward position, but the GC is already en route rather. Initial bank of point defense opens up as the GC scales the hill. It's laser face time, baby. Should I build T1 bombers? Looking for options to deal with the Navy. Navy, which is causing no end of problems down here. Well, there's actually a Novax somewhere on the map, but it's not going to last long. Oh, a lot of that inbound fire just getting blocked perfectly by those hills surrounding this forward base of Insidious. Once island is nuked, they got like 1.5 bases left, says Cheese.
Strategic launch detected.
There's the nuke. So, if he's sticking to the plan, that's going to the side island, as mentioned before. And look at that. GC just cleaning house. That, as they say, is that. Last factory detonates. And what was a phenomenally successful incursion by Nori is finally put to bed in the 38th minute. Oh, that was unfortunate. Did you see that? Foley moved his fighters up to this position just as the nuke landed and lost a bunch of them. That base thoroughly irradiated. And now we're starting to see more battleship fire rain down on this main base of Insidious. Novak station has been destroyed, wherever the satellite was and what it was harassing, I couldn't tell you. More shielding has gone up in the main base, so might have been there initially, prompting that defensive expansion. But look at this now. I mean, Team 1 are up massively on eco. 1.4k versus 624 on Team 2. Yeah, they're managing to reclaim territory. They haven't yet been able to expand to it and get the eco set up. But Team 1 have been devastatingly effective with targeting these areas over the course of this game, and they've racked up a huge advantage. They're almost 400,000 mass up in terms of total mass over the course of this game. And yet, you get the feeling Team 2 are somehow in the ascendancy. Insidious cleared out of the beach base now, with the exception of a handful of factories. Doing his level best to defend his causeway position. But that might be difficult for much longer as the number of battleships increases, assuming he's still building them, of course. Ugh. New GC soon to complete, ticking up towards 75% done, and that will be something for Team 1 to worry about once they start getting experimentals roaming these lands. All of the fight on the experimental front has been down on this side of the field up until now. Novak satellite targeting resourcing options. That really seems to be the MO of Team 1 right now. Just try and starve them out of all mass. They've done a pretty good job of it. Almost out earning them 2-1 at the moment. A while ago it was almost 3-1. But they seem to have dropped off in their own mass production of late. Insidious down to 675 mass per tick. It was in the 700 or 800s a minute ago. Clem not doing brilliantly. He's on 291. Foley pulling in 365. Mr. Science pulling in 350. How are the kill-loss ratios looking? Clem playing a blinder at 1.21, and Mr. Science, who's sat back in air, probably profiteering massively by his nuke launcher, is at 1.7. But the players actually fighting the good fight. That tells a different story. Foley at 0.92. Insidious Noob at 0.63. Yeah, I don't know, man. These mass totals are telling a different story to the rest of the game. Vessels for Insidious Noob have been forced to drop back in the face of this Colossus. We have a fresh batch of blazers ready to go out onto the water. That's going to be hard for these vessels to deal with. Probably going to have to drop back further, potentially allowing Foley to get set up in the bottom pond with his own naval production. Up here, Insidious completely driven off the beach position. Somehow still holding the causeway. Has lost that Novak satellite once again. the shields holding? Not brilliantly. Well, the back ones, actually, I was not looking at the forward ones. They're doing a fair bit better. Plonk, plonk, as they ping bat on. Vet up. Probably a good shout. GC inbound up the causeway. What have we got in terms of point defense? At some point we have had decent banks of Ravagers. You can see they have killed a GC, which I've missed at some point. Stomped its way right up through the center, but either that GC or subsequent battleship fire has dealt with most of the Ravagers that were protecting the front of this base. Now it looks like there's only 2 guarding this approach, and that is not going to be enough to stop that GC. Another nuke away. I think this is nuke number 3. First one to the main base, second one to the side island. Looks like this one might be coming back for the core mass over here once more. Soon to be 45 minutes down in this game. Team 2 starting to close that gap on eco, although this will set them back once again. Clem drops down to 281 mass per tick. Foley starting to advance, though. He's up to 509 as he's reclaimed Oron's old base. And those blazes are indeed venturing out onto the water. Insidious Noob wisely brings in his frigates in front, uses them as a meat shield. More valuable T2 further behind. But the causeway base has been destroyed, and the GC, I think we saw being worked on earlier by Clem, is in action in tandem with Foley's. He must have come in from this approach. Together they have wiped this forward base that guards the entrance to Team 1's territory. There's a lot of Riptides over here, but 2 GCs is a lot of tank and a lot of damage. Yeah, I don't like the way this is shaping up for Team 1 at all. What's going on down here? Ooh! Okay, so that's where a lot of their eco has gone. They're working on a Scathis. And yeah, that'll cause some havoc, no doubt. But they've got to have some boots on the ground. You can't just rely on artillery. And they're looking very light on production because of that Scathis. We've got lots of T2 factories up here which were pumping out those Riptides we saw earlier, but currently they're not building anything. Really needs is a ton of a ton of Percy production. But he's very light on T3 factories. The Scathis has completed, and I like this play. Ravagers to defend, presumably. There we go, from his teammate, the UEF player. Won't be able to build them himself unless he has UEF engineers. And he is going for work on a ton of Monkey Lords. Defend Scathis at all costs. Shielding present, but light. 1, 2, 3, 4 T3s and a T2. I'm reckoning 2 or 3 volleys of that Scathis. We'll start to see some real breakthrough on this position, assuming he stays on it. And then he will potentially have an advantage in air production in favour of Team 1. 300 ASFs on the field for Team 2 and 374 for Team 1. So a modest advantage at the moment. However, if the Scathis is successful, there's still the little matter of these 2 Colossus. This one looked like it was going to go off and go after the Scathis, but I'm guessing they probably scouted this outrageous battery of Ravagers which is going up under shield coverage also. So instead they're going to make certain that they kill off air production instead. Insidious doing what he can to slow this GC up. Just pumping out as many labs as is humanly possible. But look at the breakthrough from the Scathis. Air production from Foley is more or less dead. We've got factories over here. They're not air factories. Expect this to be target number 2 once Insidious Noob is satisfied that that air base has been obliterated. But speaking of obliterating air bases, GC from Foley making contact now with Mr. Science's main base. It's about 2/3 the way done on that latest nuke, but that will go up in the chain reaction. Second GC makes contact. So both teams losing all semblance of air production at more or less the same time. They still do both have their air forces largely intact for the time being. Mr. Science not even making a run for it at this point. I think he knows he's done. Happy to go out to some laser face to the back of the head. Oh, maybe he just wasn't aware of the threat or where his comm was. And now it is too late anyway. Mr. Science dead and gone. Not so much science, but history. Lol. Second target under threat. You can see the damage that's been inflicted already. But for the first time this game, despite the presence of the Scathis, Team 2 go ahead on eco. Like, by a margin. 819 versus 783. They are still down some 300,000 mass, but they are firmly in the ascendancy, pushing out in the bottom pond, pushing up through the causeway, break through from the top pond, and now a full-on beachhead operation underway. Tons of land factories operational for Clem. Support commanders continuing construction of that forward beachhead, and quite frankly, I think this is done and dusted. Team 1 mass production collapsing. That must be power related. Oh my god, he's got no power. Minus 18 to 19,000 net power. Currently pulling in 130 mass per tick. Probably the worst possible time. Scathis admittedly still operational, and he's dishing out real lumps to Team 2's infrastructure, but there's just too much currently on the field. Probably too many support commanders lurking around for that Scathis to even shut them out properly. Eco far too mobile. Bottom pond situation looks absolutely dire as blazes and battleships tear through this fleet of cruisers. It's like fish in a barrel. Insidious Noob making his way into that side pond there, but really, I think at this point in time, it is done for. Bug under construction. That's going to take him a while with 170 mass per tick. That power situation is horrendous. Just don't see a way out from here. ASF's beginning to posture from both sides. We're going to get some almighty air battle to really finish this game, to close it out. Oh, he seems to have sorted out his power issues. He's back up to 460 mass per tick. It's because he's stopped working on big projects down here. Probably spammed up a few more reactors. GC takes care of a Monkey Lord north of Noob's base. Hordes of mech marines against hordes of flares. Mech Marines are horribly outnumbered. And there's the Control K to finish out the game, and I don't blame him one bit. That game was completely over and done with. He was about to start taking fire from the bottom pond. Look, we've got a missile ship, 2 missile ships inbound. They will wreck your face. More stuff coming up through the causeway. It would have just been prolonging the inevitable. MVP for me, I think it's a pretty obvious choice. It's got to go to Foley. Special mention, of course, for Nori's wonderful incursion down here, but he did let himself down a little bit by getting caught by that GC. But it's happened to all of us. It's hard to gauge sometimes, the sheer speed difference between the ACUs and the experimentals. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. If you'd like to support me, or indeed if you've just seen everything that I've put out, well done you if you have, and you would like to see more, there are some 99, closing in on 100 casts, premium content casts over on the Patreon. It's a mere $1 a month. And the best part about it is there's no ads attached to them at all, so it's completely free viewing once you make that outlay of a mere $1. And on top of it as well, you get access to the Discord. It's the best way to help support me. So come join our little community and come support the work that we're doing here. Thank you so much for your time, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, stay well and stay safe. This is Guile, signing out.